A professor said that coconut oil is pure poison, and now you are seeing that phrase everywhere. But what does all of this really mean? That's what we're going to talk about today. So this is one of those stories that I've been seeing everywhere. My husband Jason has been seeing it everywhere, and so that lets me know that you're probably seeing it everywhere too, and you might have some questions about it, and it's something that we need to talk about. But before we get into everything, if you do happen to be new here, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Sarah, and I am a registered dietitian, and this whole channel is about food and nutrition stuff. So if you're into that sort of thing, then make sure that you subscribe. But today we are talking about this whole coconut oil is pure poison quote. And let me just say, this whole thing, I just find it really, really annoying. Now we're gonna get into some of the science of all of this and why this person may have said this and kind of what the nitty gritty is, but let's just talk about the statement in and of itself. Coconut oil is pure poison. If you hear anyone out there saying that any food is poison or pure poison, that should be like a little red flag that maybe you shouldn't listen to this person. Now, that doesn't mean that that person could never say anything that's helpful or accurate, but anytime someone is calling food poison, I just immediately take a step back and they really go down a notch in my mind as far as credibility goes, because this is just food fear-mongering. It's the same thing whether the person is talking about coconut oil or meat or sugar or grains or legumes or fruits or any other food, because there is someone who will tell you that pretty much any food out there or any food group is poison or it's toxic or it's killing you. All of these kinds of scary, inaccurate words that people use around food. And there are a lot of problems with this. The first is that food is food. Food is not poison. It simply isn't a correct thing to say that any food is poison. But on top of that, it contributes to this fear around food that a lot of people have, people feeling like they need to eat perfect, or they, can never eat this food, or they always have to eat these foods, these kind of strict diet communities that people get into where they're really restricting their food, things like orthorexia, where people, become obsessed with eating perfectly or everything they eat being healthy, and it can really start to limit people's access to foods. Like they start cutting foods off of their list because, oh, this person said this is poison or this is gonna kill me or whatever, so I can never eat it. And then people get narrowed down to fewer and fewer foods that they eat, but also just people getting locked into that diet mentality. Again, these kind of strict food communities where they have very strict rules about what they can and can't eat based on some sort of dietary dogma that isn't really based in good evidence, or it takes a piece of evidence and then just extrapolates it or blows it up to be more than it really is. Another reason this kind of fear-mongering is a problem is because it contributes to all of the confusion there is around food and nutrition. Anytime there is an article about nutrition or food or nutrition research or anything like that, if I go through the comments, it doesn't take very long. A lot of times it's the first comment and maybe the second and the third that have some sort of phrasing like, well, you know how it is, these nutrition people just don't know what's going on, and every day it changes, this is gonna kill you, this is gonna save your life, all of this kinds of things. People feel legitimately confused and frustrated around food and nutrition, and it's because they keep getting these mixed messages. They feel like no one knows what they're talking about, no one knows what's going on, when really that's not the case. Yes, nutrition science is a newer science, there's a lot that we don't know, but at the same time the recommendations aren't wildly changing from one day to the next. But the reason people have that perception is because of these sort of sensational statements and headlines, and because there's a lot of people talking about food and nutrition stuff who aren't actually qualified or trained or knowledgeable enough to do so. So if you talk to the dietitians, the people who are trained in food and nutrition, who have a degree in this, who have practical experience in this, who have taken an exam on this, a registration exam, that have gone through all of this training and education, and then also their professional experience working with clients, if you talk to dietitians, you're really not going to get that much difference in what they're saying as far as what's good for you, how different foods might affect your body and disease and all these kinds of things. You're really not going to get some huge variation where every day it seems like things are changing. The reason it seems that way is because there are all these other voices crowding in. Different people maybe who are in other health professions, doctors, nurses, also like personal trainers, fitness trainers, who come in and start talking about nutrition stuff, even though that's not really their area of expertise or where they are knowledgeable. Also, you have just kind of regular people who maybe aren't in any sort of health profession that had a personal experience. They got on one of these diets and it changed their life, and so now they think that it's their job to like preach the gospel of whatever diet they're on to everyone because it worked for them, who, you know, by their definition of what's working or what they're trying to do. And so that means everyone else should be doing it. You know, there's all these other people coming in and talking, and so it kind of muddies the water. And this is a part of that, these kinds of sensational headlines adding to this confusion. And what that does is it paralyzes people, and they feel like no one knows what's going on, no one knows what's happening, I don't know what to do, so I'm just not even gonna think about this stuff, I'm not even gonna try, because really there's nothing that you can do, or no one knows what they're talking about anyway. And another side note with this whole issue of people talking about nutrition who aren't really qualified to talk about it, a lot of times those people will make these broad sweeping claims like the coconut oil is pure poison thing, whereas someone who is trained, who's a dietitian, is more likely to make nuanced statements. And those things don't make great headlines. You know, saying something is poison, that gets attention, that gets out there, people see it. But saying, well, we know this, but we also know that, and it seems like the evidence points in this direction, but da-da-da-da-da, which is the accurate answer based on the information we have and what we know about nutrition right now, that doesn't sound exciting. No one wants to hear someone like, oh, well, it's kind of like this, but there's some evidence that says this, because one, it just isn't catchy, but also to a lot of people, that sounds like waffling, or they don't really know what's going on. This person who says like a statement that sounds certain and this is the truth and whatever, that sounds like, oh, that person's confident, they know what's up. That other person, they don't know what they're talking about, when really the nuance is what is reflecting what we actually know, and the sexy one-liner is bold and it sounds great, but it's not really accurate. So that's the problem with this statement of coconut oil is pure poison and why it annoys me and frustrates me. It makes me frustrated for you and all that kind of stuff. But now let's talk about why someone might say that coconut oil is pure poison, or what exactly is going on here that's leading to this type of statement and all of the confusion and all of the arguing online. So within the past 5 to 10 years, coconut oil has really blown up. I mean, 10 years ago, coconut oil was not something that the average American had in their pantry as a staple thing that they just kept there. If someone maybe was from a culture that had a cuisine that uses coconut oil traditionally in their recipes, they might have it, or maybe if someone is trying to recreate one of those recipes themselves, then maybe they would go get some coconut oil to make that recipe, but it wasn't something that the average person just kind of kept around to use in their home. Now, at least from what I can tell, lots of people keep coconut oil. It's right there in the grocery store. It's easy to find, and it is becoming one of those staples that everyone just kind of has. And it's got this health halo thing going on. Somehow, I'm not sure exactly how this whole ball got rolling, but coconut oil in recent years has been put out there as this sort of miracle cure-all food that we all need to be eating, and we need to be eating tons of it. I mean, there have been people recommending that you cook everything with it, you spread it on everything, you should be mixing it in your coffee and eating it by the spoonful, and like it is this miracle food that if you eat it, it's gonna prevent every disease, it's gonna cure everything, and then the rainbows are gonna come out, and the birds are gonna be singing, and your whole life is gonna be perfect if you just eat coconut oil. And my guess is it's probably an intersection of several different things. There's the whole paleo community has really latched onto coconut oil. Then you also have it being a great substitute in vegan baking as a substitute for butter. So I think that kind of gave it a little boost too. So you have like several different groups kind of pushing it up. But now a lot of Americans have gotten the message that this is a magical superfood that everyone should be eating, and yeah, it's gonna make everything better. When really, that isn't the case. Now let me be clear, it's not the case for any food, so this isn't just about coconut oil. There aren't any foods that are magic or are gonna cure everything, or that everyone needs to be eating, or that you need to be eating in giant quantities. That just across the board is not true. But with coconut oil, it's especially interesting because it went from this thing that was really kind of demonized, especially in the low-fat era of the 80s and 90s, and then it was kind of a quick 180 to the evil thing that no one should eat, to the magical, wonderful thing that everyone should be eating. When in reality, it's neither. So coconut oil is mostly saturated fat, and saturated fat kind of gets put in the category of the bad fats we shouldn't be eating, but it's a little bit more complicated than that. So let's talk about the science a little bit and how fats affect our body. So there are two main categories of fats, saturated and unsaturated. The difference chemically is just about hydrogen. We won't get into the chemical structure right now, but saturated fats are saturated with hydrogen. They have all the hydrogen they can hold. Unsaturated fats are not saturated with hydrogen. And that's the main difference. And that difference affects how those fats interact with each other, how they stack up, how they're processed by our body. And so what we know right now is that if you replace saturated fats in the diet with unsaturated fats, then it has a positive impact on your cholesterol and triglycerides. So unsaturated fats increase your HDL, which is the good cholesterol, and decrease your LDL, which is the bad cholesterol. Saturated fats increase both. So you're getting a boost in the good cholesterol, but you're also getting a boost in the bad cholesterol. So that's kind of the main difference on how they affect the body, and they might affect your lab numbers. The other thing about that is that you seem to have good results if you replace saturated fat with unsaturated fats, but not if you replace saturated fat with carbs. So taking out saturated fat and then throwing in carbs instead doesn't have that positive impact. Now, even within all of this, these are kind of like the general principles. There's a lot we don't know, and there's a lot of different factors here. So what type of carbs are we replacing with? Are we replacing with a fat-free cookie a la the 80s and 90s? Or are you replacing it with rice or watermelon or whatever? Does that make a difference? Who knows? We could get more granular, I guess is what I'm saying. It's easy to have these big categories, even with saturated fat and unsaturated fat. Within those, there are tons of different types, and it seems that maybe some types of saturated fat have a stronger impact, while others have less of an impact. The other thing that we have to consider is that we are not just eating carbs and fats and proteins and vitamins and minerals and antioxidants. We eat food, and foods have a mixture of these things. So like coconut oil, it has mostly saturated fat. It's going to have some other types of fat. The types of saturated fat are going to be different in coconut oil from another food, and then you're combining that with whatever you're cooking the coconut oil with. There's all of these different factors that are interacting together. Another thing we need to learn more about is cholesterol in and of itself. Within the HDL and the LDL, there are different types of those too. And so now we're starting to see people looking at, well, do the different types matter? And what is really important? Is it the total amounts? Is it the ratio between these? What actually impacts your cardiovascular risk? And then what actually impacts your mortality? All of these different things. There's a lot more going on here that we're always learning about, but there's still more to learn. So is coconut oil a health food? No, it's not. You don't need to be supplementing your life with coconut oil, putting it in every recipe, spreading it on everything, and just kind of choking it down because it's going to cure everything. It's not. But is it some sort of like evil demon thing that we all need to avoid at all costs and never have it? No, that's not true either. So when it comes to how you use coconut oil, if you like it in a certain recipe, if that flavor works well with the other flavors, or maybe you're making a style of cuisine that has coconut oil as kind of an essential item and is really what is supposed to be used for that, or maybe you're cooking with really high heat, coconut oil is great for that. Those are times to use coconut oil, but also use other fats in your cooking as well, depending on what's going to work well with the flavors, what's going to work well with the cooking method, and also considering nutrition too. It's all of these factors go into your decision making when it comes to what you're going to eat, how you're going to cook your food, all that sort of thing. And also your own individual health situation. So if you have a specific condition or something that's going to affect the fats that you choose in your cooking, then that would be something that you would consider as well. But it's not this kind of blanket like always use coconut oil on everything or never use coconut oil ever. Neither of those are what we want to go for here. It's about that middle ground and using it when it seems appropriate, but also using other oils and fats and cooking methods and all kinds of things, because really it's about variety. There isn't one food that is going to kill us all. There isn't one food that is going to save us from everything. That's not how food and nutrition works. It's about this combination of different foods and different nutrients, and also enjoying your food and all the other factors that go into the eating experience. Food isn't just about nutrition. It's also about connections with other people and culture and all of these things, and enjoyment. Like, enjoying your food is a good thing too. So there's lots of pieces to this puzzle. It's not just about nutrition, and the nutrition piece is not as simple or as black and white as some people might want you to think. So I hope this cleared things up for you a bit and maybe brought your anxiety levels down a couple notches if this was really worrying you and stressing you out. And let me know in the comments, what is your personal experience with this? How have you seen coconut oil's kind of role or perceptions change over time? Have you seen the same thing that I've seen? If you're in the US, I'd love to hear that, but especially if you're outside of the US, I would love to hear if you have seen a similar thing happen in your country, or if things have been a little bit different for you. And if you happen to be new here and you want more healthy eating tips and nutrition info and videos like this one, then make sure that you subscribe, because eating healthy and living a healthy lifestyle really doesn't have to be complicated, and I want to show you how to do it. And if you want to watch some more videos, I have a couple linked over here that you might like. Thanks for watching. I hope you're having a great day, and I'll talk to you next time.